Welcome to our first episode of WES Alumni Archives. In this series, we're going to be conducting a range of interviews exploring different topics that we'll be discussing with Warwick graduates and WES alumni. The topic of today's interview is studying economics at university. And so, Ryan, as a newly graduated econ student, we've asked you here today to discuss this theme with us. So, do you want to tell us maybe a bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Ryan. I'm from Malaysia, slash Hong Kong, and I was in WES for 3 years actually, starting off as a sponsorship and partnership team member in my first year, and then eventually becoming the overall coordinator for the WES 2023. And I was in Warwick my entire time for 3 years studying economics, as Alice has said, and yeah, that's a bit about me.
Great, thank you so much. So, starting off, with a little bit of a broad question, could you tell us what inspired you to study economics at university?
So when I was quite young, my parents are actually from finance backgrounds, so I was always kind of related to the stock market, to the banks, as my dad was a stock market broker, while my mom used to work in many of the big banks. So I always had an early interest in finance, and my dad was actually really wanted me to learn as much as I want. So what he did was he allowed me to buy books about economics by The Economist, the magazine, and that just increased my interest within the social science. And it turns out that I actually had a bigger interest in economics rather than finance, and economics is more about learning about why people make certain choices, which while it sounds really simple, it can get really complicated, as you can see in a lot of the scary complex maths that you might see in uni level or even in A levels. But in general, I thought it was really interesting how, like, for example, countries from the macro level, how countries decides to make their own decisions to set tax rates, to decide what to buy, and from even the micro level, why people make sometimes rational decisions but also irrational decisions. And this broad range of choice theory is something that drew me into economics. And from high school onwards, I already knew that I was going to study economics. In GCSE, I took economics. In A levels / IB, I took economics, and I eventually ended up at the University of Warwick for economics. Now, during this time, I also was reading a lot of books about economics, and one of the first books that I remember buying was a book about BRICS, which is a proposed inter-organization between Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And these countries are the new developing countries. And I thought it was quite interesting about how Jeffrey Sachs, the author, described how these countries are the new economic superpower, will be the new economic superpower, and what they have been doing in the last 20, 30 years to achieve such status. Obviously now, a lot of things have changed from the last 10 years, but it was a very good starting point for me to learn a bit more about what economics entails. So I would strongly suggest you guys who might be interested in economics, to maybe pick up a book about something that you might be interested in. If it's politics, then you could pick up BRICS, like what I did. But you're interested more in sports, maybe Soccernomics. You're interested in game theory, maybe Nudge by Teller and Sunstein. So there's a lot of things you can explore to learn more about economics and what might interest you. And that's actually how, and as well as when my parents pushed me, began my interest in economics.
Thank you so much. It's kind of all over us. So, as you said, it's great submerging yourself into that world before getting to university. But thank you. You've told us what brought you there, but was studying economics at Warwick what you expected it to be?
So, in terms of studying economics in Warwick is actually kind of unique in the sense that while we obviously have the microeconomics, the macroeconomics, the stats and maths that all other unis have, we also have an additional core module, which is history in our first year. And I know a lot of Warwick students does not like it, but it was actually quite interesting because it does help build a lot of basis of your knowledge that would be quite useful in second and third year, especially if you're doing a research in applied economics, which is kind of a mini dissertation. So I think that the economics course within Warwick is quite good, quite strong in the sense that it helps prepare you a lot for the future. Not in terms of both your writing skills, your ability to meet new people, and especially the quantitative skills. As speaking to some of the other people within the other universities, Warwick has some of the hardest quantitative stuff to learn with the economics. Now, my favorite part of the course in Warwick, the economics course in Warwick, is the fact that there was a lot of quantitative subjects that I could just go out to the professors and ask about. For example, in my third year, I did industrial economics, which is basically looking at how the market works. And then we apply a lot of different theories, quite mathematical theories, to see how a market will function based on different assumptions. And there's a lot of that, and in my mind, there's a lot of debate between like whether this assumption is realistic, for example. And the ability for me to just go to a professor's office, book an office hour, and just chat to a professor for half an hour, for an hour even, about, oh, does this theory actually work, and why this theory might not work, and then just go to them about the pros and cons is really, really good, because it really expands my mind about what is possible in economics, and it gives me a sense of almost relief that there's people that's also thinking about the same thing as me. And it's also nice that I can discuss about this to many of my other classmates as well. But in terms of studying economics as overall in Warwick, my favorite thing was actually the fact that in Warwick, there's 4 different economic societies. So there's almost like a society for everyone, for every economic students. There's an economic society, there's a Warwick Economics Summit, which I was part of, the Warwick Women Econ and Rethinking Economics. And the fact that the societies, the economic society is such a big part of my life, I was able to meet a lot of good friends through my 3 years in the summit. I was able to host a wonderful summit with a lot of the team members, 60 different team members, this year, 2023. And I was able to meet a lot of cool new people, like the governor of the Bank of Italy, the king of Lesotho, former prime ministers, etc. And this was something that I think I would never have gotten a chance to do if I had gone to a different university. So overall, I think I really like the economics course in University of Warwick. I really recommend everyone doing it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's great that you've mentioned aspects of university that sometimes I think people forget, but that are crucial and so different from what it's like studying at high school, like talking to your professors after class, or discussing with your course mates, or taking part in societies like the Warwick Economic Summit. So yeah, thank you so much for your answer. Now on to what I believe is a concern amongst many students, not only economics, everyone, but in this case, we're going to discuss for economics students. What's advice that you would give to current economic students on how to stand out to potential employers and potentially secure meaningful employment opportunities?
So I'll first of all, I want to make it clear that by the fact that you're studying economics, it does not mean that you have to do a finance degree. While economics can sound very scary because it sounds very quantitative, very mathsy basically, economics is more than that. Basically, you see that you don't necessarily have to do a really mathsy course with the economics, because there's often options for you to choose more than just a quantitative subjects like econometrics. You can do more about like behavioral economics, more like developmental economics, and this expands your pathways and your potential for your different job outcomes. Having said that, I am going to work in Deloitte at the start September this year as a technology and digital risk advisory. Now, obviously, this doesn't sound like it's very related to economics, but this is the beauty of studying economics. The main thing that you would want to do to probably start with your job, start thinking about your job career from the start, is just simply in your first year having a look at what what different companies there are. There's obviously the finance companies, the investment banking companies, commercial banking companies, the consulting companies, the professional services companies, and then just reading through it, attending as many workshops from different societies to have a feel of what they might entail and to see whether you might like it. Then after that, what I find favorable to do is you can reach out to people through LinkedIn. So it's very important to start with a LinkedIn account, at least from when you graduate, so that you can start reaching out to people in uni about their experiences, or even people from the companies that you're interested, and discuss about the application process, the exam process, and what to expect in the future. Then after that, there's often a lot of companies who like cover letters. It's good to have the cover letters, to write some cover letters, practice writing some cover letters, give it to someone to read it. And if it sounds good, then well, then that's great. But if it doesn't sound good, then you know what to improve. And it allows you to basically form an idea of what the companies might want as well, and what you might say to a recruiter about the company. So that all those basic things does take a lot of time, but but in first year at least, a lot of economics course across in different universities does not actually count towards your final grade. So it's great if you can use your first year to basically find a possible job outcome that you might like in the future. And don't worry, in first year, while a lot of students do get insight weeks, a lot of those students also don't get insight weeks. It is not imperative to get insight weeks, which is basically a week where you look into companies and see what they might how they operate and what you might need to do to get in. But it's just a lot of stress. But then don't stress about like the first year. If you don't get one, it's fine. There's often a lot of different pathways. You can work in think tank. You can intern in think tanks. You can intern in the Bank of England, for example. There's just a lot of different pathways if you don't get into a financial industry. It's the second and third year where you often have to balance your academia life better and your social life and your job applications. But my main advice is don't panic. Have a read of what the company's values are. Companies often have a certain set of values that they really want and take off from your interviews, from your cover letters. So have a read of those. Definitely reach out to people through LinkedIn about what to expect from the application process, from what to include within your interviews, and then basically try a lot. I know some people that applied to 30, 40 interviews, and they only got 2 or maybe 1. But I also know people who only applied for 5 to 10, and they got all 5 to 10. So a lot of it is also due to luck. But if you want to increase your chance, do it as early as possible and try to reach out to as many people as you can.
Thank you so much. And yeah, you're right. It's a lot. I think people forget that it's a lot of trial and error. And yeah, thanks for that advice. Now, you mentioned how you're starting your job in the next few months. Could you tell us about how studying economics has shaped your career aspirations?
So initially, when I was studying economics, I actually wanted to do a master's. And that dream is not over yet, but it's just that I do think I need a break from academia for the time being before I go back in, because 3 years of economics is quite harsh if you because there's a lot of things, at least in Warwick, that we have to do, from econometrics to the research paper, which took a lot of time. But I did enjoy my course, as it did help me develop all the skills required for me in Deloitte. As I said before, technology and digital risk is not necessarily what you think of when you do economics, but there was actually a lot of soft skills that I learned. For example, communication, speaking with peers, the ability to lead, that I learned from my time doing economics in Warwick, but as well as a lot of harder skills. Well, like more quantitative skills, because within the job that I'm going to do, there's a lot of data analysis, for example, and Warwick and economics does a really good job in preparing you to become more analytical, preparing to see like, okay, this is what I need to do right now. This is what I need to do next. This is what I need to do after a while. So it allows us to become more step by step, more logical in our thinking, which is what's required in my new job. And it also gives me the quantitative background that I would need to perform a lot of the modeling, forecasting for my clients and for my new role. So I think that there's a lot of things in economics that you can pick out and probably apply to any jobs that you do. If you, for example, want to become a psychiatrist, obviously you do need a psychology background, but you can learn behavioral economics to do that. If you want to become part of the academia, you learn the ability to write reports, to write dissertations, write essays, and this is very useful, the ability to research. If you want to work with the government, you again learn how to research better, how to communicate with people, and this is some of the very important skills that we'll pick up while learning economics.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think that's, I mean, also a great thing about studying economics at university, that it's so volatile and broad. Ryan, thank you so much for your answers and thanks for your time. This has been a very insightful conversation.
Thank you.